everyone to see. Apologies, but it is not that simple. Is that the position of CUNY?
It is entirely unacceptable that.
And was this administrator disciplined who emailed?
Again, in that particular case, we were working with the New
No,
York City Police
was this
Department.
administrator disciplined for sending this response?
Any case that we have will investigate, and the appropriate action will be taken.
So what was the appropriate action taken against this administrator in this case?
In this case, as I mentioned to you, we are working with the New York City Police Department.
So no disciplinary action has been taken by CUNY? Is that correct?
We will investigate any action.
So an investigation, but no actual action, like so many of these failed university presidents. But it's not just this case. You talked about how you focused on this since 2019. But let me remind you, in 2021, you hired Abdi Allah as CUNY's Chief Diversity Officer, and this role includes overseeing anti-Semitism complaints and initiatives. Were you aware at that time that this senior administrator you hired was previously employed by CARE,
parliamentary inquiry?
the Council on American Islamic Relations?
Gentlelady will suspend.
My time. Can you hold the time? It was 2:25.
We'll hold the time.
Does the committee have a policy on publicizing people's personal emails?
This is a university administrator's email.
Email addresses?
No, we don't have a policy, I'm told, on that. And again, this is at the university.
This is a university email, a public university in the
Last Congress, the Committee on Education and Workforce conducted vital, rigorous oversight of the anti-Semitic violence that spiraled out of control on college campuses all over the United States after October 7th, 2023. Specifically, the committee focused on the weeks-long violent encampments that engulfed campuses across the country and whether universities were holding those involved accountable. Today's hearing marks the next phase of the committee's work, an effort to understand why this wave of anti-Semitism was able so easily to consume the nation's universities in the first place. The committee will be examining several factors that incite anti-Semitism on college campuses. First, we'll examine faculty and student groups. We've long expressed concern about the group Students for Justice in Palestine, but after October 7th, chapters of the faculty variant of this group, Faculty and Staff for Justice in Palestine, proliferated at universities across the United States. Over 100 new chapters have been established in an effort to bring anti-Semitism into the classrooms and lend institutional legitimacy to anti-Semitic actions. We'll examine faculty unions. Secondly, faculty unions have played a critical role fomenting anti-Semitism at universities under the guise of labor rights. As we'll see today, unions across the country encourage anti-Semitic activism through protests, demands, and workshops. Third, we'll look at Middle East Studies centers. Many such centers have become beachheads for faculty with extremist ties who seek to demonize Israel and the United States. We support the study of the Middle East and recognize that it is important for our national security. But we do not support promoting anti-Semitism and Islamism, a radical political ideology. Fourth, we'll examine foreign funding. Foreign funding can influence research priorities, faculty appointments, public statements, and events on campus. This is especially the case for U.S. universities with a separate campus abroad. We need greater transparency into foreign funding when it comes to higher education. The Deterrent Act, passed on a bipartisan basis through this committee and the House earlier this Congress, would achieve that goal. Finally, and more broadly, we'll be examining the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies universities use. The DEI ideology embraced by so many university bureaucrats categorizes Jews as white oppressors and therefore excuses or even justifies anti-Semitic harassment. The violence, fear, and alienation felt by Jewish students is at its core a result of administrators and their staff lacking the moral clarity to condemn and punish anti-Semitism that is creating a hostile environment for Jewish students on America's campuses. We've seen that in evidence at past hearings, sadly, to a great degree. Speech that is protected by the First Amendment can still contribute to a hostile environment, and universities are obligated to do something about it. Universities can choose to hire anti-Semitic faculty, welcome students with a history of anti-Semitism, accept certain foreign funding, and let the behavior of anti-Semitic unions go unchecked. But we will see today they do so at their own risk. While I appreciated our discussions with the presidents and chancellors yesterday in my office, and I sincerely appreciated it, especially in light of the change in schedule that forced your changes in schedule as well. It is time for clear action on your campuses that can be quantified and can be exemplified to the watching world around. With that, I yield to the ranking member, my friend from Virginia, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being with us today. And let me begin by acknowledging the seriousness of today's hearing topic. Combating anti-Semitism, like all forms of hatred and bigotry, must be a moral and civic priority. But I'd be remiss if I did not point out that this is our 9th hearing on anti-Semitism in 18 months. Also note that since this committee's first anti-Semitism hearing in December 2023, we've not held a single hearing addressing racism, xenophobia, sexism, Islamophobia, or other challenges affecting other student groups on American college campuses. And I've witnessed this committee's silence on the administration's wholesale attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility, DEI initiatives designed to make campuses more welcoming to all groups. And if we're seriously to address anti-Semitism and other forms of hate on college campuses, the process we could best use would be the vigorous enforcement of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, enforced by the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education. Yet this committee majority has said nothing about the wholesale firings attacking the Office of Civil Rights. And while the committee is engaged in holding its 9th hearing on anti-Semitism, critical issues affecting public education in this country and viability of institutions of higher education institutions have been ignored. For example, in the last 6 months, our administration has taken harmful steps in the area of education. Specifically, nearly 50% of the department's workforce have been proposed to be fired, thus threatening the key role of department plays in keeping our nation's schools running and our students access to safe, welcoming environments. And yesterday, the Supreme Court majority green-lighted this fatal blow by permitting the department to proceed with this planned firing of employees responsible for managing student loans, collecting data and student learning trends, and relevant to this hearing, enforcing the civil rights protections of students. And yesterday evening, President Trump announced on a social media platform that based on the Supreme Court decision that Secretary of Education should proceed with the dismantling of the Department of Education. And we're seeing the impact on this action. The department is requiring many of those with student loans to change to another loan program, but those students are unable to do it because of inadequate staff at the Department of Education. That's before more people are being fired. Now, the area this committee has not held a hearing on is the impact of stripping critical federal funding on the integrity of higher education institutions and their contributions to science, medicine, and global competition. This committee has also not examined how the recent enacted reconciliation law, or as Democrats call it, the big ugly bill, will impact student loan borrowers. This law will raise costs for students seeking higher education by forcing student loan borrowers into unaffordable repayment plans, eliminating resources to help struggling borrowers, pushing students into predatory private loan market by eliminating Graduate Plus loans, capping Parent Plus loans, and limiting Pell Grant access. Further, the law exposes students to predatory for-profit institutions by stopping the implementation of the 2023 Borrower Defense Regulation, which provides student loan relief for millions of borrowers defrauded by their schools, or the 2023 Closed School Discharge Regulation, which provides student loan relief for students whose institutions closed before they were able to complete their programs. Also on July 1st, with little warning and no justification, this administration announced it was pausing nearly $7 billion in education programs that the administration initially proposed to eliminate in next year's fiscal 2026 budget. Again, we have had no hearings to examine the effect of the threat of loss of funding on the following programs. On Title IIA programs, supporting effective instruction, grant programs which support professional development and other activities to improve the effectiveness of teachers, school leaders, including reducing class sizes. 3A program, English language acquisition, which supports language instruction to help English language learners become proficient in English. The Student Support Academic Enrichment Grants, Title IVA program, which provide flexible funding for school districts for a wide range of activities, including supporting STEM education, accelerating learning courses, college and career counseling, school-based mental health services, and improving school technology, among others. And another Title IV program, Title IVB, the 21st Community Learning Centers, which support high-quality before and after-school programs focused on providing academic enrichment opportunities for students. The Title IC program, Migrant Education, which supports educational needs of migratory students, including children of migrant and seasonal farm workers, and the Adult Basic Literacy Education State Grants, including Integrated English Literacy and Civics Education State Grants, which support adult education and literacy programs to provide basic skills to help prepare adults and out-of-school youth for success in the workforce. All of these programs are at risk of the abrupt loss in funding. In response, a number of the state attorneys general have filed an emergency lawsuit just yesterday. However, cash-strapped school districts, particularly those in low-income and rural areas, cannot afford the delay in funding and will likely be forced to either lay off staff or cut back programs and services. Now, we should be having hearings hearings to support and strengthen our learning institutions. We should be insisting that the Department of Education not abdicate its responsibility to ensure that all students are afforded safe, quality, and equitable education, regardless of their race, gender, immigration status, socioeconomic status, religion, or disability status. When we should call on the officials from the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education to testify and ensure that they are implementing their longstanding duties to investigate, monitor, and provide resources to victims of potential civil rights violations, and they are enforcing the laws that fight anti-Semitism. So, Mr. Chairman, as we conduct our 9th hearing on this issue, I urge you to also focus some of your attention to those who have the responsibility to protect students from hate and discrimination, the Office of Civil Rights, or whatever is left of it, and the pressing issues facing colleges and students today. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentleman. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, all members who wish to insert written statements into the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically in Microsoft Word format by 5 p.m., 14 days after this hearing. And without objection, the hearing record will remain open for 14 days to allow such statements and other extraneous material noted during the hearing to be submitted for the official hearing record. I'll now turn to the introduction of the 4 witnesses. Our first witness is Dr. Robert M. Groves, the interim president of Georgetown University, right here in Washington, D.C. Welcome. Our second witness is Dr. Felix V. Matos Rodriguez, the Chancellor of the City University of New York in New York City. Welcome. Our third witness is Matt Nosanchuk. I hope I got close on that. A principal for Matos Strategies and former Deputy Assistant Secretary, Office for Civil Rights, U.S. Department of Education in Washington, D.C. Welcome. Our last witness is Dr. Richard K. Lyons, Chancellor of the University of California at Berkeley in Berkeley, California. Welcome. We thank the witnesses for being here today. Pursuant to committee rules, I would ask that you each limit your oral presentation to a 3-minute summary of your written statement. The clock will count down from 3 minutes as committee members have many questions for you, and we would like to spend as much time as possible on questions. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8D and committee practice, however, we will not cut off your testimony until you reach the 5-minute mark. I would like to remind the witnesses to be aware of their responsibility to provide accurate information to the committee. I'll first recognize Dr. Groves for your testimony.
Chairman Wahlberg, Ranking Member Scott, members of the committee, since 1789, as the first Catholic and Jesuit U.S. university, Georgetown's religious beliefs have demanded the absence of anti-Semitism and other hatreds. Indeed, the Church has directed the Jesuits to foster dialogue across all religions. Therefore, any hatred or fear among our students destroys that dialogue. Anti-Semitism is incompatible with living our mission, and the same applies to Islamophobia and racism. Hence, we try to react quickly to threats on collaboration. On October 8th, a day after the Hamas attack, Georgetown condemned it, one of the first universities to speak out. Similarly, we try to act quickly to student conduct violations, but have learned that we need to adapt to changing circumstances almost continuously. Addressing interfaith conflict has been aided by the largest set of full-time religious leaders at any U.S. research university at Georgetown. Since 1968, a full-time Georgetown rabbi, but also Jesuit and Orthodox priests, Protestant ministers, an imam, a director of Dharmic life, and Hindu spiritual advisor. We've also built academic units, the Center for Jewish Civilization, a Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, and the Berkeley Center for Religion, Peace, and World Affairs, among others. We also try to carry out the Jesuit mission globally, now working in 16 different countries around the world. This has taught us the need to respect laws of other countries and their cultures, despite disagreeing with some of their government's policies. For example, in 2005, we brought Western Jesuit education and international affairs to Qatar. There, nearly 70% of our students are women, a group with historically limited access to education. There, we have full control over the curriculum, admissions, faculty hiring, and research activities. At Georgetown, non-U.S. financial support is accepted only to fulfill our long-standing mission, but never to alter it. Given our Jesuit values, we expose students to different viewpoints on the Middle East. In addition to speakers on Gaza, we've hosted IDF soldiers, families of Israeli and Palestinians who've lost their lives, families of U.S. hostages in Gaza. Georgetown is not perfect, and as events evolve, we've had to clarify rules of student behavior. But since October 7th, Georgetown has not experienced an encampment, physical violence, cancellation of commencement activities, or city police activities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I now recognize Dr. Matos Rodriguez for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Wahlberg, Ranking Member Scott, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify at this important hearing. I am Felix Matos Rodriguez, and it's a privilege to serve as the Chancellor of the City University of New York and to represent our institution here today. This committee has highlighted the alarming rise in anti-Semitism on university campuses. Our university has not been immune, but let me be clear. Anti-Semitism has no place at CUNY. I share your commitment to identifying and addressing the underlying factors instigating anti-Semitism on campuses. In fact, I have confronted anti-Semitism since the moment I became Chancellor in 2019. CUNY is a unique institution. We are the nation's largest urban public university. We are comprised of 26 campuses spread across New York City's 5 boroughs. We serve nearly 200,040 degree-seeking students and employ 40,000 people. Each of our campuses has its own president and administration, and as Chancellor, I oversee the university's operations and policies to advance our mission of providing accessible, high-quality education. Our annual in-state tuition, which is under $5,000 for community colleges and under $7,000 for senior colleges, remains among the most affordable in the nation. Due to our focus on affordability, educational quality, and meaningful job opportunities for our students, we have been recognized as a powerful engine of social mobility. We are proud that we propel more students into the middle class than all Ivy League schools combined. The size and scope of our community also comes with challenges, and we confront this head-on, including the unacceptable rise in anti-Semitism. Those challenges only grew more pronounced after the horrific terrorist attack on Israel on October 7th of 2023. And although our response has not always been perfect, our commitment to this important work has never wavered. Our commitment to the safety of the members of our Jewish community and to our entire community is non-negotiable. I have been committing to forging deep ties with Jewish organizations on our campuses and have invested nearly $2 million to educate our community to combat hate and anti-Semitism. I have created a center to centralize and improve CUNY's anti-discrimination policies, made Title VI training mandatory, and launch our Constructive Dialogue Initiative, which is designed to help foster mutual understanding and combat hate. And I have made the safety of our Jewish students a top priority. I would like to highlight one example that I think encapsulates the challenges that we face and how we have learned from them. In the spring of 2024, an encampment disrupted City College campus during our spring break. In response, I secured emergency funding for increased security personnel. We ended the encampment with the help of the New York City Police Department, but not before damage was done to campus property. We learned from that experience, and we now have a zero-tolerance policy against encampments. We've also hired more than 150 full-time security employees and contracted with an additional 250 security personnel. Our approach has shown results. This past spring, we applied our zero-tolerance policy and worked with CUNY Public Safety to prevent an encampment at City College. Our student safety is and must remain a top priority, and we're committed to constant vigilance against anti-Semitism. Although I am proud of the progress that we have made, I know that we must never rest until every student on our campus is safe, feels safe, and can fully participate in student life. I hope to discuss in greater detail today during today's hearing the many efforts we've undertaken to combat anti-Semitism on our campuses and address its root causes. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. I recognize Mr. Nosanchuk. Nosanchuk. Simple to say it that way for your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Wahlberg and Ranking Member Scott. My name is Matt Nosanchuk. I'm a civil rights lawyer with a track record of fighting anti-Semitism in the Obama White House, at the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, and as a former Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. I bring three key messages today. First, anti-Semitism in America and on campuses is real. Responding to it demands actions that are tailored to universities, properly implemented, and adequately resourced. Second, this administration's approach is contradictory and counterproductive. It includes the broad anti-democratic crackdown on foreign students, slashing funds for universities, disregarding the Title VI process, and gutting the office mandated to enforce the law while claiming to champion the fight against anti-Semitism. Third, Congress must fulfill its core responsibilities, meaningful oversight and adequate resources for effective solutions, not political theater that inflames campus climate and ultimately harms the students it claims to protect. My written testimony describes the unacceptable discrimination Jewish students face: social ostracism, verbal harassment, sometimes physical violence. In the classroom, faculty have targeted Jewish students who've responded by dropping classes, concealing their identity, or retreating from campus life. The bottom line is this: no students should be forced to choose between their identity and social acceptance. This includes their connection to a Jewish homeland, whether they express it through Zionism or generally identify as Jewish. When these problems persist, it's natural to demand forceful solutions and accountability. We have robust tools under Title VI. The most effective investigations, OCR launched an unprecedented number following October 7th, result in detailed, monitored resolution agreements obligating schools to take verifiable action. They include, for example, climate surveys, mandatory training, and ensuring all complaints get addressed promptly and effectively. Here's what one campus Hillel director said about change from his campus's agreement. Jewish life has improved remarkably. Jewish students now receive responses to bias incidents within 24 hours. The Hillel Center reported a 40% increase in daily usage. Parents feel confident sending their children there. In short, Jewish life on campus is thriving. These agreements work. That's why OCR used them in anti-Semitism investigations during the first Trump administration. Proper enforcement creates meaningful, positive change. None of that is happening now. This administration boasts it is combating anti-Semitism while systematically dismantling the infrastructure needed to do it. They've gutted OCR, the office with the expertise and mandate to enforce Title VI, closing most of its regional offices and cutting staff in half. Thorough investigations are impossible. OCR dismissed over 3,400 complaints in just 3 months, an unprecedented number suggesting students in harm's way are being ignored. The administration relies on press reports rather than actual complaints from harmed students, sending ultimatums styled as notices of violation, riddled with inaccuracies and political hyperbole. The current approach reminds me of the Wizard of Oz, projecting an intimidating, demanding, and illusory image of action. But here, the man behind the curtain cancels funds for civil rights enforcement and cancer research. Fighting anti-Semitism is actually the camel's nose under the tent for ideological assaults on universities that have undertaken extensive efforts to address the problem. Even the Wall Street Journal editorialized that the administration is overstepping its authority by imposing sweeping conditions on funds that weren't spelled out by Congress and shooting first and investigating later. An administration committed to strengthening enforcement against anti-Semitism invests in responsible offices and critical personnel. It doesn't shutter agencies and fire staff. Many leading Jewish community voices and a majority of American Jews reject the false choice between confronting anti-Semitism and upholding democracy. Our safety as Jews has always been tied to the rule of law and protection of rights for all. Anti-democratic actions taken in our name don't make Jews safer, they make us targets. Harming universities makes everyone less safe, including Jews. Congress has a choice: continue down this destructive path, gutting enforcement capacity Congress created and funded, or return to evidence-based solutions. Restore regional offices and OCR funding to at least $200 million. Rehire experienced staff who know how to investigate cases. Every day we delay, Jewish students hurt unnecessarily. But every day offers an opportunity to choose effective action over ideological assaults. Support, don't weaken the institutions charged with protecting students. Thank you. I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you. I recognize now Dr. Lyons for your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Wahlberg, Ranking Member Scott, and members of the committee. I'm Rich Lyons, and I just finished my first year as Chancellor of UC Berkeley. Thank you for inviting me to discuss Berkeley's efforts to combat anti-Semitism and support our Jewish community. Berkeley unequivocally condemns anti-Semitism. Our commitment to our Jewish students, colleagues, and community is unwavering. Since well before the horrific terrorist attacks of October 7th, Berkeley has been partnering with our Jewish community to combat anti-Semitism and foster a vibrant Jewish life. I am the first to say we have more work to do. Berkeley, like our nation, has not been immune to the disturbing rise in anti-Semitism. And as a public university, we have a solemn obligation to protect our community from discrimination and harassment while also upholding the First Amendment right to free speech. After a year as Chancellor, I can confidently say that Berkeley is committed to meeting this challenge. We have adopted new initiatives these are designed to curb anti-Semitism by confronting the rise in hate directly. I work in close collaboration with my Chancellor's Advisory Committee on Jewish Life, with the Berkeley Center for Jewish Studies, and our pioneering anti-Semitism education initiative. These programs help us recognize and confront anti-Semitism, support the Jewish community, and navigate the complexity of lawful protest versus harassment. We recently instituted new anti-Semitism training for all incoming students. And we continue to invest in new security and safety measures to strengthen compliance with campus rules. These are just some of our new initiatives. We continue to work with our Jewish community to respond to the ignorance at the heart of this deplorable hatred. I'm proud of Berkeley's long history and vital contributions to our nation's success. Our mission requires that we strive for a campus where all people feel safe and respected. That same mission enables our research to advance the health and well-being and security of the American people. That mission allows Berkeley to lift more students further up the economic ladder than any other university. Our undergraduates create more funded new businesses than any other university in this country. As a public institution, Berkeley has a solemn obligation to protect the quintessential American value of free speech. This obligation does not prevent us, let me repeat, does not prevent us from confronting harassment and discrimination in all its forms, including anti-Semitism. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you to each of our witnesses. Under Committee Rule 9, we will now question witnesses under the 5-minute rule. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. Let me ask the college and university leaders this first question. I'd like you to define Semitism, or define anti-Semitism as understood by, in your case, Dr. Groves, Georgetown University in all its campuses.
Thank you. We define anti-Semitism as hatred of the Jewish people and all of the behaviors that might be connected with such hatred.
Thank you. Dr. Matos Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you.
What is CUNY's definition?
Thank you. Anti-Semitism is hatred or prejudice against Jews or individuals who are perceived to be Jewish.
Thank you. Dr. Lyons, similarly. Your microphone.
I define anti-Semitism as hatred or discrimination against Jewish people.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciated the fact that each of you were able to quickly define it and simply, at least for your institution as you understand it. Chancellor Matos Rodriguez, does CUNY have an anti-Semitism problem, yes or no?
We are not immune from the anti-Semitism. It is something that I've been committed to working since 2019.
Without objection, I'd like to enter into the record the testimony of dozens of CUNY students who have experienced severe anti-Semitism on campuses. Hearing no objection, they will be entered. How many Jewish students have transferred out of CUNY since October 7th, 2023?
I don't have that information, Chair.
Be good information to get. How many anti-Semitism complaints has CUNY received system-wide since October 7th, 2023?
We have received in 2024 68 complaints of anti-Semitism. On the current year, 2025, we have 16.
Thank you. How many students has CUNY suspended or expelled for anti-Semitic conduct since October 7th, 2023?
We have, over the last 2 years, disciplined 18 students for anti-Semitic conduct, and we have disciplined another 25 for inappropriate behavior in protests, demonstrations, or rallies.
Thank you. Chancellor, you have referred to the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism as a vital resource. Does that mean university officials are employing this definition to determine what constitutes anti-Semitism across the CUNY system?
Thank you for your question, and that is correct. And we've added in our training for all the individuals who participate in the investigations on our campuses. The ones who were hired in this year received new training which includes using the definition as stipulated by OCR, and is also part of refreshing courses that we have for all personnel in addition to public safety officers.
Does CUNY have any anti-Semitic faculty?
We have faculty that might conduct themselves in anti-Semitic behavior, and we have no tolerance for it, and we're clear about the expectations to follow all our rules and policies, and if any individual breaks those rules, they will be investigated and the appropriate disciplinary action will be taken if warranted.
How many Zionist professors has CUNY hired since October 7th?
We do not track the hiring of faculty in terms of ideology or things of that nature, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that information.
But you're able to tell us that you had anti-Semitic professors.
Well, that is based on some of the disciplining and behavior that we had in some of the campuses. So,
without objection, I'd like to enter in the record a complaint filed by Hunter College Jewish Studies Chair Leah Garrett against CUNY alleging a hostile workplace environment. Without objection, I hear none. That will be submitted. While Dr. Garrett was suffering under CUNY's indifference to anti-Semitism, in February 2025, Hunter College posted a job announcement looking to hire a Palestinian studies professor well-versed in settler colonialism, genocide, and apartheid. As you know, Hunter College was forced to edit this anti-Semitic job description. Did Hunter College still hire people for this position?
when that posting reached my attention, we made sure to tell Hunter College that it was entirely inappropriate to have that posting, that it needed to be modified, and that they needed also to take steps to make sure that any postings in the future would not contain language like that. That hiring process is ongoing.
That's an issue of great concern to us. We continue to hear rhetoric denouncing settler colonialism and Israeli genocide contribute to anti-Semitism in the college and CUNY specifically. My time has expired, and now I recognize the gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Matamichi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member, and thank you to the witnesses. Since our last hearing on this issue in May, the Jewish community has experienced more devastating losses, including the fatal shooting in Washington, D.C. of 2 Israeli embassy employees and the Molotov cocktail attack on peaceful marchers in Boulder, Colorado. As I have said before in this committee, there has been an undeniable rise in anti-Semitism and hate speech across the country and around the globe. Jewish students and all students deserve to feel safe and be safe on college campuses and everywhere. No one should be afraid of harassment or discrimination because of their faith. And I have said before that if the majority wanted to fight anti-Semitism and protect Jewish students, they should condemn anti-Semitism in their own party and at the highest level of government. They have failed to do so. Multiple White House officials have ties to anti-Semitic extremists. This includes the current liaison to the Department of Homeland Security, the communications director for the Office of Management and Budget, and the press secretary of the Department of Defense, who posted Nazi slogans on her personal social media accounts and promoted the anti-Semitic Great Replacement conspiracy theory. The leader of President Trump's so-called anti-Semitism task force actually talked about revoking Jew cards and shared a post on social media from the former leader of a white supremacist organization that called for the, quote, Nazification of America. Donald Trump has continued to spout anti-Semitic venom, most recently at a rally where he said, no going to the banks and borrowing from, in some cases, a fine banker and in some cases, Shylocks and bad people. He tried to walk back those statements, saying incredulously that he had never heard the term Shylock used in an anti-Semitic way. Words matter, and the President of the United States should not be using words, especially anti-Semitic tropes, if he does not know what they mean. Have any Republican colleagues here today condemned these acts of anti-Semitism from the President and members of the administration, or called for removal of these individuals from office? No, because that would require real and meaningful commitment to rooting out anti-Semitism from the top down. Instead, my colleagues are weaponizing the real problems of the Jewish community, a community I am an active member of, in furtherance of their attacks on and plans to defund colleges and universities. As members of this committee, we sit with the responsibility of enacting policies that best educate our youth, and this ongoing attack on higher education is shameful. As Mr. Nosanchuk so compellingly testified, combating the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses requires investing in the Office for Civil Rights, an agency dedicated to investigating and resolving civil rights violations, including anti-Semitic incidences at schools and universities. But instead of supporting that office, Secretary McMahon has already fired about half of OCR's staff and closed 7 of their 12, more than half of their regional offices. Republicans have said nothing. In the past months, what's left of OCR dismissed a staggering more than 3,400 cases. But again, Republicans say nothing. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice recently slashed hate crime prevention grants, claiming they do not align with the administration's priorities. Will my Republican colleagues stand against the ongoing attacks on the Office for Civil Rights? And what about the hate crime prevention grants? Will any Republican colleagues advocate for these funds to be reinstated? Of course not. That would be real action. Why do that when we can create another political sideshow instead? Education has always played a significant role in the efforts to end anti-Semitism, but that's not what this committee has been doing. With drastic budget cuts, the hiring of bigoted individuals at the highest levels, the embrace of white Christian nationalism, and, I might say, in stark contrast to Jewish values, the abhorrent failure to respect basic human and constitutional rights, this administration is creating a culture of disrespect and danger, not just for Jewish students. Perhaps that should be the focus of this hearing. Additionally, instead of giving OCR the staff and resources they need to do the fact-based Title VI investigation, the Trump administration has actually withheld hundreds of millions of dollars from colleges and universities, apparently to punish for them rather than address anti-Semitism. But this kind of imposition of collective punishment hurts all students, including Jewish students, because it will lead to fewer academic options and higher tuition. I wonder if that isn't the point. As I have said before and will continue to repeat, I am a member of the Congressional Jewish Caucus. I am a mother who raised her children in a Jewish home. I'm an active member of my synagogue. I am extremely disappointed in the majority for exploiting my community's legitimate fears and concerns as they advance discriminatory, regressive, unconstitutional, and harmful policy. Jewish Americans and the American people deserve better. I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Now recognize the Chairwoman Emeritus of this committee, Representative Fox.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here today. And I will ask you, when it's appropriate, I'd like a yes or no answer. Dr. Matos Rodriguez, CUNY's Faculty and Staff Union, the Professional Staff Congress, or PSC, has passed multiple resolutions that support the anti-Semitic BDS movement. Do you support forcing Jewish faculty and staff to be represented by a union that endorses BDS? Yes or no?
Thank you. I have repudiated BDS and have said that there's no place for BDS at the City University of New York.
So you didn't give me an answer, yes or no. So I have to assume it's no. Yes, excuse me. In 2021, the EEOC substantiated a claim by a Jewish CUNY professor that the PSC discriminated against him and other Jewish professors because of their religion. What disciplinary action did you take against those responsible?
And I am that case of the EEOC. We thought it was entirely inappropriate to discriminate against any member of our community, and that was a matter taken by the EEOC.
And so no disciplinary action. You didn't state a disciplinary action.
Not to my knowledge.
Does the PSC have an anti-Semitism problem? Yes or no?
The PSC does not speak for the City University of New York. We've been clear on our commitment against anti-Semitism and against BDS.
So the president of the PSC personally supports BDS. Do you view this as problematic?
Again, the PSC does not speak for the City University of New York. My understanding also that the last vote that they took, they
so
rejected.
You obviously don't think it's problematic. Thank you. Dr. Groves, after the U.S. Successfully struck Iran's nuclear infrastructure, one of the professors at Georgetown Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding, Jonathan A.C. Brown, said, quote, "I hope Iran does some symbolic strike on a base." Is this person really suited to be educating the next generation of American diplomats?
Thank you for the question. Within minutes of our learning of that tweet, the dean contacted Professor Brown. The tweet was removed. We issued a statement condemning the tweet. Professor Brown is no longer chair of his department, and he's on leave, and we're beginning a process of reviewing the case.
So he's been making similarly appalling statements for years, but he has been kept around for years. So you are now investigating and disciplining him from what you've said?
Yes, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Dr. Lyons, several UC Berkeley faculty and staff have made anti-Semitic remarks and justified Palestinian terrorism. In February 2024, history professor and chancellor's chair Usama Makdisi tweeted, "I could have been one of those who broke through the siege on October 7, referencing an article that praised Hamas terrorists and denied reports of sexual violence against Israeli women in 2017. Continuing lecturer Hatim Bazian, co-founder of Students for Justice in Palestine, posted anti-Semitic tweets, including one depicting a stereotypical ultra-Orthodox Jew with the statement, "Mom, look, I is chosen. I can now kill, rape, smuggle organs, and steal the lands of Palestinians. Yeah." An October 2023 survey found 85% of Jewish students felt UC Berkeley had not adequately addressed their safety concerns. Understandable given the conduct of some university personnel. Dr. Lyons, do you condone the statements made by these Berkeley employees?
I'm unable to comment on the discipline of an individual faculty or a comment of an individual faculty. What I can say is that you mentioned several different phrases in different events. So separate from the people that you're mentioning, if I heard or saw some of those statements. I would both view them as objectionable, if not reprehensible, and I would also immediately report it, and I would also have empathy for our Jewish community.
So what are you doing to make reforms to your hiring practices to see that you don't bring people like that onto the campus in the future?
Let's make the answer brief. The time has expired.
We use, when hiring faculty, we use academic standards to hire faculty. We don't use ideological conditions to hire faculty.
Well, obviously, your academic standards have been failing you, and I'd look for other standards if I were you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady's time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Takano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to witnesses for being here. Mr. Nosanchuk, in your time with the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, you helped to lead the most resolutions of anti-Semitism cases in OCR's history. Congratulations on that. In your experience, is a committee hearing such as this an appropriate venue to determine whether an individual school has violated Title VI laws?
Thank you for the question. Title VI investigations are very fact-intensive. When they're opened, OCR investigators go onto a campus and speak with people, look at documents. It is not a inquiry into whether any specific word is anti-Semitic, but it's a holistic determination as to whether there was harassment or hostile environment that violates Title VI.
So it's fairly non-political, dry, fact-intensive inquiry.
Yes, non-political.
Okay. The Trump administration has made a lot of commitments to combating anti-Semitism on college campuses. Is the current Office of Civil Rights, or OCR, equipped to fulfill those promises?
From what I understand, Congressman Takano, it is not. As I noted in my testimony, the staff has been cut by half. I understand that now the average caseload for the investigators remaining is 200 cases per person, and it's very important to note that of the 7 of 12 regional offices that were eliminated, those were the offices where the greatest expertise was for investigating and bringing to resolution the anti-Semitism cases that we resolved. And as I said, we resolved a record number of 5 times more than the first Trump administration.
So in your experience, pursuing anti-Semitism charges or claims, determining whether or not those anti-Semitism did occur, or any form of discrimination under Title VI, it's a time-intensive and staff-intensive process.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not simply determining whether there was an instance of anti-Semitism, but it's determining whether the instances that occurred rise to the level of harassment or hostile environment such that Title VI has been violated.
Thank you. OCR has dismissed over 3,000 civil rights complaints between March and June of this year. Mr. Nosanchuk, what is the difference between conducting investigations based on press reporting and external sources, as the Trump administration is doing, and doing a process-based Title VI investigation that's based on specific complaints filed, as was the practice of past administrations?
Thank you for the question. I think the best illustration of that is actually in a U.S. News and World Report opinion piece that a student at Harvard, Sarah Silverman, just published yesterday. She wrote that she had had her mezuzah stripped off of her doorpost. It was a one instance of individual discrimination that was detailed in the Harvard Notice of Violation, and the administration did not even talk to her about what had happened. So relying on press reports, relying on broad statements or perceptions is not how Title VI is supposed to work. Again, it's looking at the anti-Semitic discrimination has occurred and then determining whether it has risen to the level of hostile environment, determining whether Jews have been targeted unlawfully.
Thank you. Have the Trump administration's actions made campus more safe or less safe for students who are victims of anti-Semitism?
Based on everything I'm hearing from Jewish students, including the one whom I just mentioned, it's making campuses less safe.
Mr. Nosanchuk, Republicans claim that certain institutions of higher education like Georgetown are subjects of foreign influence that radicalizes their students. As a former federal government employee, you've taken a number of ethics trainings in your own career. Which would you say is an example of undue foreign influence? A long-standing 2-decade academic partnership with a foreign country that serves to build diplomatic partnerships, or B, a $400 million luxury plane gifted to the President of the United States by a foreign government for his personal use?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. I would say there are rules for transparency and reporting that pertain to funding from foreign governments to universities, and those, I believe, need to be followed.
Thank you. Well, the majority uses hearings like this one to rail against foreign influence while their own administration routinely violates clear ethics boundaries with foreign governments. They have turned this hearing room into a kangaroo court where they spend our time litigating a predetermined outcome to do nothing, actually to help Jewish students, just make public theater out of legitimate pain. This scorched earth warfare against higher education will endanger academic freedom, innovative research, and international cooperation for generations to come. And I yield back.
Thanks, gentlemen. His time has expired, and now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Dr. Groves, well, first of all, once again, thank you for the care at Georgetown University Hospital that I received with some treatments. Just very impressed there. Dr. Groves, recently something did come to my attention, and I want to see if you're aware of it. Are you aware that in 2024, flyers designed to mimic eviction notices were placed on Jewish students' dormitory doors on your campus, falsely accusing Israel of genocide and ethnic cleansing?
I am aware of that. This was during move-in weekend for our new students. We acted on that immediately, removed the eviction notices with a assembly of staff around, identified the perpetrator of this, and discipline was done for him.
Very good. So obviously this violates the Georgetown policies.
This was abhorrent. And for the students who saw this and were hurt by this, we apologize as a university. This is intolerable at Georgetown. We cannot have this sort of behavior.
Well, thank you for taking that action, and thank you for taking the disciplinary action. Incredibly important. Dr. Groves, does Georgetown employ any anti-Semitic faculty members or fellows?
We have faculty that have the range of opinions on every issue facing humankind. We police carefully the behavior of our faculty in the classroom and their research activities. They are free, as all residents of the United States, to have speech in the public domain. And
yeah, I wanted to point out one in particular, one to start with anyone. Imad Shaheen, a senior fellow at Georgetown Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, which I find interesting, Muslim Christian Understanding, and he applauded the terrorist attack on October 7th, stating it would, quote, bring about this change that we long for. Does Shaheen's description of the October 7th terrorist attack, the quote, change that we long for, end quote, violate your university's harassment and discrimination policies?
That was an abhorrent tweet that was sent out. That is not the Georgetown policy. What we do in cases like that is to assure that the student welfare and the welfare of the GEO community is protected through events like that.
So the protection, did that include disciplinary action or an investigation into Imad Shaheen for his statement?
We have, I can't cite that particular case, but I can assure you, Congressman, that we have dismissed faculty for anti-Semitic behavior on social media in the classroom, and also dismissed staff for the same behavior.
Well, there's another one in a social media post. The associate director of the Bridge Initiative of Georgetown, Mubashra Tazamal, reposted a statement that said, Israel has been recreating Auschwitz in Gaza for 2 years. Do you believe it's appropriate for a Georgetown-affiliated scholar to publicly endorse a statement comparing Israel actions in Gaza to the evil of Auschwitz?
No, I reject those kinds of statements. That's not the policy of Georgetown, and I want everyone to know that to the extent that hurt Jewish students, Jewish faculty, Jewish staff at Georgetown, I apologize for that. But that's behavior covered under the First Amendment on social media that we don't intervene on. What we do intervene on quickly is behavior that affects our students in the classroom and research-related activities that involve students.
So there's so this individual didn't face any disciplinary action or consequences?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, in a director position, no less. Dr. Rose, what message do you think the university's inaction sends to Jewish students on your campus?
You know, we have a variety of ways to stay in touch with our Jewish community. Our Jewish Life office is a wonderful resource. We meet with our rabbi. We meet with Jewish students. We meet with Jewish faculty to keep a sense of the pulse of the culture.
Dr. Rose, I appreciate it. My time is almost gone. If I may, just one more question. When hiring faculty, does Georgetown currently have a vetting process that includes screening for anti-Semitic content and a candidate's public record?
Not at this time, Congressman.
Thank you. Thank the gentleman. The time has expired, and now recognize the gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. Let me start with something that shouldn't need to be said, but it must be said clearly. Anti-Semitism is real, it's rising, and it has no place on our campuses. We have a responsibility to make sure that every student, Jewish, Muslim, black, brown, or otherwise, feel safe and respected where they live and where they learn. And that means calling out hate when we see it. It also means upholding the civil rights protections that have long protected our students from discrimination. Now, I spent over 40 years as a professor, and what I know is this. Classrooms are where we ask questions, where we challenge each other, and yes, sometimes where we disagree. But I'm concerned about what I see happening here, because instead of solving a problem, we're watching some try to use anti-Semitism as a reason to go after higher education. I've heard it in this committee that DEI is to blame, that foreign scholars are a threat, that faculty ought to be punished for their views. But I'll tell you, we don't need political scorecards. We need real solutions, and that means following the law. It means fully funding the Office of Civil Rights, not hollowing it out. And let's not forget, as we sit here today, holding this hearing, the Department of Education is withholding more than $6 billion in congressionally mandated funding from our K-12 schools. That's money for students, for teachers, after-school programs, and for communities already stretched thin. So my question, Chancellor Lyons, thank you for being here. Your institution has a long history with student protests, some of it deeply troubling, and some of it a reflection of the moment that we're in. But I want to ask you something else. How does your institution protect academic freedom while also keeping students safe? And what does it say about your values when those freedoms are tested?
Thank you for the question. You're describing what is a very complex set of questions. The freedom to discover, the freedom to learn, the freedom to teach, these are fundamental freedoms. And so when we talk about academic freedom, let's just be clear that those are the fundamental freedoms that we protect. And at the same time, we have this obligation toward free speech. Does it frustrate us as presidents? I'll speak for myself. This is frustrating. People say, well, just drive down the middle of the road. This is a very complex road to drive down. And so we are constantly making judgments around how do we keep people safe and supported, and also how do we make sure that we are protecting free speech and the marketplace for ideas.
Thank you, sir. Let me move on. Chancellor Matos, Chancellor Matos Rodriguez, thank you as well. CUNY is a large and complex system, 26 campuses across 5 boroughs. That's no easy task. So let me ask you first, have some of the protests we've seen involved people from outside the CUNY community?
Absolutely appreciate the nuance. Our campuses are the city of New York. So in many cases, some of the events that occur are really occurring in the streets of New York City that are contingent to our campuses. So that presents
So you can give me a yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second, how is CUNY working across New York's diverse neighborhoods to confront anti-Semitism in a way that includes everyone?
Thank you. Since I mentioned, I've been committed to this since I became chancellor in 2019. I had learned as president of Queens College that you needed to bring people together. We had at Queens College the largest Muslim and Jewish populations of our campuses at CUNY, and I learned the value of bringing people together. So I have a Jewish advisory committee on Jewish life that I brought together in 2023 to listen to the members of the community to get their feedback and get answers.
Thank you so much. Let me ask you one final thing. We've heard concerns from faculty who were recently not reappointed despite having full enrolled classes scheduled for the fall, and I understand that those matters may be going through a formal process. I know you may not be able to speak to individual cases, but as a former professor myself and a department chair, somebody who believes deeply in transparency and fairness, I want to ask you, would you be willing to follow up with my office and provide more information on the policies and procedures that guide faculty appointments and reappointments at CUNY?
I appreciate the question. We're here to answer all the questions and cooperate fully with the committee.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think my time is up. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Now I recognize the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Stefanik.
Thank you. I want to begin by discussing the heinous scourge of anti-Semitism on your watch as chancellor at CUNY. You are aware at Baruch, Jewish freshmen were welcomed with heinous anti-Semitic taunts about the hostages killed by Hamas. Quote, "Where's Hirsch, you ugly expletive, expletive? Go bring them home," end quote. Quote, "You ain't going home tonight. Go back to Brooklyn. All Zionists are terrorists," end quote. Are you aware of those anti-Semitic harassment slurs?
Those are deplorable statements, and if they were associated with the event at Baruch, an investigation was done and students were disciplined.
And students were disciplined in both of those cases? At Hunter, Jewish students were forced to enter the main university building under a swastika for hours. Is that correct?
My understanding of that is that the swastika was placed outside, and we have a custom of erasing all such deplorable symbols. In that particular case, there was a delay because it had to be referred to the NYPD for the anti-hate investigation.
Let me remind you of this particular case because that's not according to your own staff. In fact, the Hunter College Director of Jewish Studies emailed university leadership requesting that the swastika be taken down. And instead, this was the response for everyone to see. Apologies, but it is not that simple. Is that the position of CUNY?
It is entirely unacceptable that.
And was this administrator disciplined who emailed?
Again, in that particular case, we were working with the New
No,
York City Police
was this
Department.
administrator disciplined for sending this response?
Any case that we have will investigate and the appropriate action will be taken.
So what was the appropriate action taken against this administrator in this case?
In this case, as I mentioned to you, we are working with the New York City Police Department.
So no disciplinary action has been taken by CUNY? Is that correct?
We will investigate any action.
So an investigation, but no actual action, like so many of these failed university presidents. But it's not just this case. You talked about how you focused on this since 2019. But let me remind you, in 2021, you hired Abdi Allah as CUNY's Chief Diversity Officer, and this role includes overseeing anti-Semitism complaints and initiatives. Were you aware at that time that this senior administrator you hired was previously employed by CARE?
Parliamentary inquiry.
The Council on American Islamic Relations.
Gentlelady will suspend.
My time, can
what
you
is
hold the time? It was 2:25.
We'll hold the time.
Does the committee have a policy on publicizing people's personal emails?
This is university administrator's email.
Email addresses?
No, we don't have a policy, I'm told, on that. And again, this is at the university.
This is a university email, a public university in the state of New York. Following up at 2:25, which my time is, I'm referencing the CUNY Chief Diversity Officer, who you hired in 2021. They were previously employed by CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Is that correct?
So she was hired to be the Chief Diversity Officer at the central office with no responsibility over cases that have to deal with students or faculty.
But yet you were aware that she was previously employed by CARE.
Again, I was not directly responsible for that.
Even though she was the Senior Chief Diversity Officer?
As I mentioned to you, I was not directly responsible for that hire.
So is it okay, from your perspective, obviously it is, to have a former employee of CARE? Let me remind you, CARE was a co-conspirator in a terrorist financing case and has ties to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. Is she currently still employed by CUNY?
She is.
There you go. So no action, just words here today. Even further, and by the way, her salary is paid for by the New York taxpayers, correct?
We have the expectations of total professionalism and compliance with all the rules and policies of CUNY. Any employee that breaks our policies or our rules will be investigated.
But it obviously
Action
doesn't
will be
break
taken.
CUNY's rules to have a senior employee who was previously employed by a terrorist-affiliated organization. That is unacceptable to New York taxpayers. It is unacceptable to American taxpayers. But it's not just that. Are you familiar with CUNY Clear? This is the clinical arm of CUNY School of Law.
CUNY Clear, I'm not familiar with them.
Well, I will remind you, the CUNY Clear founder and professor is the head of Mahmoud Khalil's Legal Defense Fund. Are you aware of that?
No.
Does it concern you that New York taxpayers are paying the salary for the legal defense fund of Mahmoud Khalil? And I'll remind you who Mahmoud Khalil is. This is the chief pro-Hamas agitator that led to the anti-Semitic encampments at Columbia, the rioting and violent takeover of Hamilton Hall, the harassment and physical assault of Jewish students.
And we do not condone any kind of anti-Semitism.
But you
in our
allow
campuses.
the head of the clinical legal organization and a professor to be the chief legal aide to Mahmoud Khalil and do his legal defense fund.
Those decisions are made in the clinics, are made in the individual campuses.
It goes up to you. You are the chancellor.
Those decisions are made at
So you
the
take no
individual
responsibility.
campuses. I take responsibility for any behavior of our faculty.
So
and
is this
staff
acceptable?
that
Is this
anti-Semitic.
acceptable?
Any behavior that is anti-Semitic
Is
and
this
in violation
acceptable
of our
that the
rules.
legal defense fund for Mahmoud Khalil is the head of CUNY Clear? That's acceptable under your watch.
We do have no tolerance for anti-Semitism on our campuses, and we've been very
So will
clear.
this person be fired?
Anybody that breaks our rules and our policies, there'll be an investigation. We'll investigate, and if there's any disciplinary action to be taken, we'll take it.
Let me make a prediction. No disciplinary action. This individual is not going to be fired because it's all words, no action. You have failed the people of New York. You have failed Jewish students in New York State, and it is a disgrace. I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. The gentlelady's time has expired. I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Desaulniers.
Thank you. Chancellor, you want to have a few moments of my time to respond to that outrageous attack by my colleague?
Again, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to make clear that the rules of the City University of New York apply to all our students, faculty, and staff. Anybody who behaves in any way that it is anti-Semitic, that sponsors violence against members of the Jewish community or any community, discriminate or harass, will be investigated and held accountable based on our rules. That it's clear, it's our commitment. I have been engaged in fighting anti-Semitism as chancellor since I became the chancellor in 2019. Have been working very closely with many of our Jewish stakeholder organizations, led a delegation of presidents and deans to Israel back in 2019 to encourage our ties with universities in Israel and cultural institutions and artistic institutions in Israel. We have made very clear our time and place and manner policies on our campuses to make sure that individuals can exercise their right.
Thank you, Chancellor. Appreciate it. I want to save a little bit of my time, but I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from Jewish faculty at the University of California supporting the actions of the administration against anti-Semitism.
Without objection, and hearing none, it will be entered.
Thank you. I want to thank all the witnesses here. Dr. Groves, I want to start with you as a proud alumni of a Jesuit education where they taught us to service to others and lifelong learning. So thank you for your presentation. And you have an example of that Jesuit education with former member Moran, who's a proud graduate like myself of the College of the Holy Cross sitting behind you. Chancellor Lyons, it's always delightful to see you. I don't have the honor of representing the campus itself, but I like to say that I can look down on your campus from Grizzly Peak on my side of the district. I want to, first of all, mention that you are from the Haas School of Business, one of the best business schools in the country, hardly a hotbed of anything but excellence. So you as the dean of that school, it's sort of the stereotypes that we get into. It's a very big school with a lot of great programs. It's also can be proud of the fact that out of the University of California, Berkeley, there have been 59 Nobel laureates between alumni and faculty. I would also add, as a friend of the current rugby coach, it's also the home of 29 rugby championships. But could you talk about some of the things you've already mentioned that you've done, elaborate to any degree you'd like, about your involvement and your predecessors in trying to balance the First Amendment rights as a public university, the best public university in the country and arguably the best in the world, against hate and violence and anti-Semitism, which is no small feat?
Well, thank you. I think a place to start is around what are so-called time, place, and manner rules. We encourage the expression of free speech on the Berkeley campus. That's an important part of a vibrant campus. It's an important part of a vibrant society. At the beginning, so I've been in my role for a year now, and we were very, very clear at the beginning of the year, across the whole UC system, I should say, certainly at Berkeley, tents are not allowed. Tents are not part of an expression of free speech. Were we tested? We were tested. We took them down immediately. There's a gate on the campus called Sather Gate. It's right in the middle. It got partially blocked, and some of the times before I became chancellor, one of the no tolerance rules, we communicated it clearly, is no blocking the gate and any part of the gate. There was a sukkah that got erected in front of the gate. We took it down effectively immediately. Anyways, part of the time, place, and manner rules, that's not just something to counter anti-Semitism. Those time, place, and manner rules need to be content neutral, and they are. But we needed to communicate what the standards are, while at the same time making sure students know that expressing your views consistent with the First Amendment is something that Berkeley doesn't just condone, it actually encourages it.
And consistent with a letter from the faculty that I am submitting, how have the various communities responded to that?
Well, thank you. I'm particularly heartened by that faculty letter. They did not need to do that. There were over 80 of them. These are our Jewish faculty who are saying, not that Berkeley is perfect. As I said in my opening statement, we have some getting better to do, and we're going to do it. But the idea that we made a lot of progress over the last year, and they are with us and with me, is heartening, and they like what they say. We've made a lot of changes, not just around time, place, and manner. We're connecting with the Jewish community and Jewish leadership in new ways. We have changed our education and training initiatives. We have a new course called Openness to Opposing Views that we plan to roll out as much as possible to incoming students. So there are many fronts.
Appreciate that. The gentleman's time has expired. I recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all of you for being here today and testifying. Growing up, my parents basically ingrained in me the biblical definition of free speech. And that was, my mother always said, if you can't say something nice about somebody or your country, don't say anything at all. AI says, in a biblical context, free speech is not an absolute, unrestricted right. Instead, it is a freedom that comes with responsibilities and limitations. While the Bible emphasizes the importance of speaking truth and building others up, it also highlights the need for restraint, graciousness, and love in communication. Wouldn't this place be a better place if we could all behave like that? Isn't that amazing? So, I got to ask some hard questions. Dr. Groves, are you familiar with Francesca Albanese?
Yes, I am.
In 2014, Albanese wrote, "America and Europe, one of them subjugated by the Jewish lobby and the other by the sense of guilt about the Holocaust." When did Georgetown bring Albanese on as an affiliated scholar?
I think she came in 2015, roughly, but she only gave a few lectures. She is not on the payroll of Georgetown and never was, Congressman.
Was Georgetown aware of Albanese's anti-Semitic statements at that time?
Not to my knowledge. That's the first I've heard of that statement.
In the decades since, Albanese has continued to endorse terrorism and spread anti-Semitism. In that time, did Georgetown consider terminating its relationship with Albanese?
I don't know the answer to that. Happy to follow up on whether that was a consideration, but she is not at Georgetown. She is not on the payroll, and she's not present on campus.
Last week, the Trump administration sanctioned Albanese over her long track record of supporting terrorism and perpetrating anti-Semitism. Is Albanese still an affiliated scholar of Georgetown?
She is still listed as an affiliate, but she's not present on campus nor participating in the center.
And let me tell you the problem we have here is, like I said, the way I was brought up, you have accountability, okay? In other words, you got to have guardrails. And if you get outside of those guardrails, you do something about it. You don't let this stuff linger on because it just rots. And that's the problem we all, I think, have up here is, for crying out loud, you got to get rid of these people that are perpetrating this hate. A question here, last April, the violent encampment at Columbia filled headlines, City College of New York. This encampment caused $3 million worth of damage. For example, how many CUNY staff, students, staff, and faculty were involved in the encampment? Do we know?
So we ended up disciplining 7 individuals in that encampment who ended up breaking into one of the buildings.
Well, I mean, were they put in prison? Have they been indicted? Have they gone before a jury of their peers for their crimes?
We collaborated with the district attorney in those cases, and there were 7 individuals who were disciplined. I cannot comment on the individual discipline, but what I can tell you also, we have a zero tolerance policy on encampment. Some of the lessons learned in that encampment have guided our work after that, and that we've been successful in making sure that we have had no other encampments in our campuses as a result of that experience.
Well, all I can tell you, things have changed a lot since I was in college. Where I went to college, they didn't put up with this stuff, and you knew it, and that's why you stayed within those guardrails. Of course, that's the way it was in high school and middle school as well. How many students have been suspended or expelled this year because of this violence and vandalism? How many students have been expelled?
Because of the encampment,
right? Mm-hmm.
We had 3 students of the 7 that were disciplined as a result of the.
How about faculty?
The encampment. There were 4.
When you say discipline, what does that mean?
I cannot comment on the individual cases. Discipline goes from reprimands, training, suspension, or termination, and we have terminated individuals in the faculty and staff for violating our policies on anti-Semitism.
Well, the great thing about this country is you have the right to prove that you're innocent. But if you're guilty, you know what? You get fired. Okay?
The gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Mannion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. The rise in anti-Semitism across the United States is profoundly troubling. We simply must do more to respond to these actions and ensure our Jewish neighbors and communities can live free from harassment, intimidation, and violence. We all must stand together to reject any targeted hatred or bigotry against any group due to their religion, ethnicity, or other demographic. But as we hold this hearing, let's be clear about the problem that we're facing. Anti-Semitism is not limited to just college campuses. It has spread rampantly in our communities, our online platforms, and our politics. Yet the majority of this committee are set on repeatedly singling out higher education and attacking university presidents and labor unions that represent their faculty while refusing to pursue serious, comprehensive solutions. In fact, they've supported this administration's moves to gut the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education, cancel grants for hate crime prevention, and openly has embraced individuals with known records of offensive, conspiratorial, hateful rhetoric. I call my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to hold those in their own party accountable and approach this issue in a more thoughtful manner. Chancellor Matos Rodriguez, given the importance of combating anti-Semitism in our state, I'd like to give you an opportunity to elaborate on CUNY's efforts. Your testimony describes the independent investigation that was commissioned and the resulting report, which included a set of recommendations. What steps is the CUNY system currently taking to implement those recommendations?
I appreciate the question, and those are the recommendations from the Lippman report, which we collaborated fully when the judge was conducting it, and we have embraced the recommendations that came from the judge and his team. One of the main ones was indicating that our decentralized structure made the follow-through in the cases of discrimination and the investigations not as responsive as they should be, something that we knew that was a challenge, and we have been advancing our work in that area, so I created a center. Now all the complaints around discrimination, harassment are handled by one single center, which works on the training of all the individuals conducting the investigation, so we have more timely investigations, we're more responsive to that work. We also had a lot of critiques, valid critiques, to a portal that we created to centralize some of that before, and now we have procured a state-of-the-art system to manage all those cases so that we can be more responsive to the individuals who submit the claims and they can be informed, so we can have better data to be more transparent to all the stakeholders that hold us accountable, and to manage those cases more effectively, and to have best practices all across the system replicated. So that's one of the recommendations from the Lippman report that we have embraced. The Lippman report also asks us to invest more in bridge building and giving tools to our faculty, students, and staff to navigate difficult conversations and issues. We launched the Constructive Dialogue Initiative. Actually, we have half of the campuses in training today at the central office. I would have been participating there had I been on the campus. And this is to give faculty, students, and staff tools to be able to have difficult conversations. We do not want people shying away from difficult conversations. They need to do it civilly, they need to do it respectfully, and they have to do it following the rules. So those are some of the investments that we've made as a result of the judge's recommendations.
Yes, and you have communicated the progress in certain ways. Can you elaborate on how you've articulated that progress to students, faculty, and the broader community?
So we've been engaged in communicating the work that we have done. I've indicated before that I have a Jewish Advisory Life Committee that has been both a resource to us of listening to what the community thinks we should be doing, but also as a way for us to convey some of the work that we have been doing in this arena. And we remain committed to this work with many of our Jewish stakeholder partners.
Suspend. The lady. Mr. Mannion, you may proceed.
Thank you. Chancellor, go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to mention one of the great joys of being the chancellor of CUNY is that we provide about a third of the new teachers that go to the public schools in New York every year. We have a partnership in a pilot with the UAA Federation of a training for all our students who are going to go to teach in managing difficult conversations in anti-hate and anti-Semitism, so that the teachers that are going to the New York City public schools are better equipped to be handling some of these issues. So we are deeply engaged in this work, and it's our commitment that we continue to do so.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentleman's time has expired, and I'll recognize the Vice Chairman of this committee, the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Owens.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I would say that, start off, that little outburst we saw a minute ago while we're having these hearings, the genesis of this anti-Semitism, this hatred that we're seeing across our country is coming from our universities. They come there with their tails wagging, ready to go out and build their dreams. They leave hating our country, hating each other, and anti-Semitism is flourishing because of it. This has been going on way too long, and we're going to have as many hearings as we have to dig this cancer out of our system. Our kids need to be leaving here knowing how to talk to each other, respect each other, and not having that kind of stuff we just had a minute ago. By the way, I don't doubt we might have some more before this is all over with. That's how they think they can get their message through. We're going to have as many oversight meetings we have to eradicate this evil of discrimination that we're seeing on college campuses. We have a dual mission here with this committee, to be the voice of Jewish students who pay good money, $70,000 per year, to be harassed, to be hated, and to be disrespected. The message very simply to college leaders is very simply this: either eradicate this cancer or there will be consequences. This is coming from top down, not bottom up. We're going to make sure we change that. There's been a lot of debate over what constitutes anti-Semitism. I just want to ask real quickly for the leaders here, the college leaders, yes or no? In denying the Jewish people their rights to self-determination, is that anti-Semitism, yes or no? Start off with
Yes.
Yes.
Is celebrating violence against Jews with phrases like globalized empata anti-Semitism, yes or no?
As a threat, absolutely, Congressman.
And any call to violence against Jewish members of our community is anti-Semitic and against our policies.
If it's an incitement to violence, yes, it is.
And I agree with your comments. Unfortunately, it's been so normalized, nobody seems to be held accountable for it when this stuff happens, by the way. Just want to make that point. Dr. Groves, are you familiar with Hamad El-Kurd, right?
No, I don't know that name.
Mohammed El-Kurd? No. Okay. He's an activist that has been spending a lot of time on your campus. He says Israelis harvest organs of the martyred and they have an unquenchable thirst for Palestinian blood. He's also said that the Jewish people control the media and wish that every single Zionist to perish. Would this be considered anti-Semitism?
Absolutely, Congressman.
He's also stated that Hamas had good political reasons for taking hostages and captives and were well treated. This is after 250 innocent men and women and children were taken hostages, women raped, and children killed by Hamas. Would you consider good political reasons as agreement with what he just said about Hamas?
No, I find that abhorrent.
Okay. Would you agree that that's pure evil for what they did and for those who support what they did?
We abhorred that attack and made the first statement on
Okay. Can
October
you
8th.
agree? Can you agree with me that it's pure
Absolutely.
evil?
Yes.
Okay. This same person, back in Georgetown, October 23rd, the same month of the massacre, Elkerd described Hamas as the liberation movement, and that the October 7th attack was a resistance tactic after 1,200 people have been massacred. Any idea how many times Georgetown students and faculty have invited Mohammed Elkerd to speak in the last 3 years at Georgetown?
I'm not aware of how many
Okay,
times. So.
4 times. 4 times. And the last one was February 16th of this year. In partnership, Georgetown University, in partnership with the Georgetown faculty and staff for justice in Palestine, invited him to pump his. So I would imagine, I know how you're going to answer this, I think. Would you allow a member of the KKK who wished the deaths of Black Americans to speak at Georgetown?
No, but we endeavor to have speakers from many different sides to give our students.
So KKK member in today's environment, you would invite, you'll give him.
No, I don't think we would. We do want to have our
This is very
students
specific.
exposed to
This is very, this is a hate. You remember what the KKK used to do to Black people, right?
Yes.
Okay. So would you give him the platform to do that?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, to that point, if Georgetown had been white KKK bigots on the campus, why would the university would disallow it? Why would the university allow by faculty or students to invite Palestinian anti-Semitic bigots? Because that's what this guy is. I'm about to run out of time. I just want to say this.
You have. Your time has expired.
Yes. Okay. It's time to get this together, and I'm glad. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for doing what we're doing right now. Appreciate it.
I thank the gentleman. I now recognize the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like others, I've expressed my concern that despite 9 hearings on anti-Semitism since I've joined Congress, that we've yet to have a single hearing on any of the other very pervasive forms of hatred that's rising in our country right now. Anti-Blackness, of course, which remains foundational, anti-Muslim hate, which is approaching levels unseen since 9/11. We can't pretend that these are not pressing when a member of this committee who is Black and Muslim is being called a terrorist by another member of this committee. Still, I was encouraged that today's hearing was planning to focus on the underlying causes of anti-Semitism and hate, something the previous 8 have, quite frankly, failed to do in earnest, because we do need to address the underlying factors if college students and any of us ever hope to live in a peaceful and a safe society. Instead, it was made immediately clear, unsurprisingly, that this is yet another hearing to demonize Muslims and their religion, to demonize Palestinians, including those in Gaza who have undeniably faced unspeakable harms, a humanitarian crisis, and human rights crisis, and particularly the young students, activists, and faculty who are determined to stand up against human rights violations. This is predictably another public opportunity for Republicans to pit Jewish Americans against Muslim Americans, Muslim against Christian, Black against white, to reinforce the actual underlying factors of hate, which are real systemic harms of white supremacy, and its reinforcement at its highest levels of government. One glaring example is the administration's selective misinterpretation of the weaponization of the civil rights laws. Mr. Nosanchuk, in your testimony, you discussed how the Trump administration is imposing draconian penalties that are completely divorced from supporting Jewish students or addressing anti-Semitism. Briefly, how is this administration's assessment of civil rights violations undermining meaningful oversight of campus safety efforts that would support students?
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman. As I said in my testimony, there is a proven way to address civil rights violations. Congress, this body, charged the Office of Civil Rights with enforcing Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and ensuring that all students have an opportunity to access their education free from discrimination. So when we would conduct an investigation and reach a resolution agreement, it would result in a whole series of steps, that many of which my fellow panelists here have discussed, to address the anti-Semitism that has occurred and to change the campus climate so that anti-Semitism doesn't exist. In addition, when investigations are conducted, it's not like there's only one type of discrimination that's occurring. Often, when an investigation is conducted and there's evidence of, say, anti-black discrimination, we might also have found evidence of anti-Semitic discrimination and expanded the investigation to encompass that. We had that flexibility. Imposing a $900 million penalty on a university is not going to prompt university presidents sitting here to think about how they're going to address anti-Semitism. They're going to think about how are they going to fill this huge hole in their budget that's just been created by a penalty that has nothing to do with the discriminatory conduct that has actually occurred.
Thank you. And I want to also be clear, that we don't allow ourselves to be lost in rhetoric. This administration's attack on colleges isn't just about campus safety. I argue it's not about it at all. It's about suppressing education. The point of college, we've talked about, is for students to expand their worldviews, develop critical thinking skills, make them less susceptible to disinformation, and navigate how to stand up for what's right and important to them. Against things that they disagree with, which might include authoritarianism. That's why this administration is doing everything and beyond in its power to dismantle higher education, censor dissent, freezing funding, forcing university presidents to resign, threatening to remove accreditation, banning entire offices and departments and revoking students' visas, disappearing students, eroding student loan programs, gutting civil rights resources, and of course, as it was mentioned at the outset of this hearing, putting an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility, the boogeyman of MAGA Republicans who are determined to sow hate and division instead of equity and inclusion. But at the same time as their crusade against diversity, the Trump administration and Republicans have said that colleges must hire more conservative faculty to increase viewpoint diversity on campuses while calling for disciplinary action against professors who believe they disagree with. Really very quickly, Mr. Nosanchuk, do you think it's appropriate for colleges to make hiring disciplinary decisions based on pressure from whatever party happens to be in Congress or in charge? Just a yes or no?
No.
Thank you. These attacks on colleges are not solving the real problem. So make mistakes. This is yet another opportunity to exploit legitimate concerns of anti-Semitism on college campuses to further their attacks on the institutions of learning. I think that it's incredibly clear hearing the opening testimonies and statements and the testimony that we will continue to hear throughout the day. I hope that you will consider that. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Now I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.
Good morning, Chancellor Lyons. Thanks very much for being here. I want to say from the outset, I know you've only been Chancellor for a year, so I just want to ask a few questions, not for the purpose of assigning blame, but for getting a better understanding of the expectations that members of the Berkeley community can have going forward. And I also want to say at the outset that while I think Berkeley's reputation as being kind of a cartoonishly leftist institution is well earned in some ways, in other ways it is an enormously important institution for our country that does tremendously beneficial research, continues to do so, and provides tremendous opportunities to students across all of its campuses. So I want that to be acknowledged as an important part of the story as well. But let's just start with a simple question. Why do you believe anti-Semitism is so pervasive at Berkeley?
Anti-Semitism is pervasive in the world. It's pervasive in this nation, in society. I think our universities are reflections of our societies, especially a large public university.
But I think we'd agree that universities have been where the problem is probably most visible, and institutions like Berkeley, among a handful of others, have been the worst offenders in a sense. Why do you think that is?
Well, have they been where it's most visible? I think, I'm not sure that it's where they're most present, but I think part of what we do see in universities is there is a freedom to express one's views, even if there's some learning that needs to happen through that process. And I think That's a healthy part of what universities do. So students do express their views. You know, if 200 students express their views on our main plaza called Sproul Plaza, that's 1/5 of 1%.
I guess why does it exist at all? I mean, we're talking about not something like littering on campus. You know, this is the world's most retrograde prejudice. It's the prejudice at the heart of the worst crime in human history. Why does this exist at all on your campus? Have you thought about that? What the explanation might be?
Well, I think we have to come back to anyone's use of the word anti-Semitism. I mean, if somebody is expressing pro-Palestinian beliefs, that's not necessarily anti-Semitism.
But you've acknowledged that there is an anti-Semitism problem that predates October 7th, and there's been a disturbing rise. So I'm asking why. Why do you think that is?
I did agree to that. I believe that part of it has to do with geopolitical events and a war in Gaza.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure that's a full explanation, but I do want to move on to a couple other topics. So there were some incidents that were deeply disturbing on your campus, such as